January. The chill in the air matched the frost that still lingered in my body since my stroke 3 weeks ago. Recovery was slow, and some days, the wheelchair felt more like a tether than a tool. But through every struggle, Alex, my 22-year-old son, was there, a steady presence of warmth and strength. I sat by the window, watching as snowflakes danced against the pane. My hands, though steadier now, still trembled slightly as I reached for the teacup Alex had made for me earlier. The rich scent of chamomile filled the air, comforting and grounding me. "How are you feeling, Mom?" His voice broke through my thoughts, soft yet firm, with a timbre that always made me feel safe. I turned to look at him, standing in the doorway. Alex had grown into such a kind and capable man, his broad shoulders and strong jawline giving him an air of maturity far beyond his years. "Better, thanks to you," I replied, offering a small smile. He walked over, crouching beside me, his hazel eyes searching mine for any hint of unspoken pain. "You'll be back on your feet in no time," he said confidently, taking my hand in his. His warmth seeped into me, more effective than any blanket. "But you have to promise me you won't push too hard." I laughed softly, a sound that felt foreign after weeks of physical and emotional exhaustion. "Alex, you're the one pushing me. I don't think I've ever worked this hard, even before the stroke." His face softened, a flicker of guilt passing through his eyes. I don't want you giving up. You've always been the strongest person I know. It's my turn to be strong for you." Emotion welled up in my chest, and I squeezed his hand. "You're doing more than enough," I whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." His response was a quiet smile, but the way his hand lingered on mine spoke volumes. In that moment, the world outside seemed to fall away. The snow, the January cold, the pain in my limbs. All that mattered was the bond we shared, one that had grown even stronger through this trial. Alex stood, his hand still holding mine as he straightened. "Do you want to go out into the garden for a bit? I can bundle you up." I nodded, the thought of fresh air suddenly appealing. "That sounds perfect." And as he carefully helped me into my coat, I realized that, despite everything I had lost to the stroke, I had also gained something profound. Alex wasn't just my son. He was my rock, my hope, and the reason I believed spring would eventually come again. The scent of wood smoke lingered in the air as the late afternoon sun cast a soft golden light across the snow-covered garden. Alex adjusted the blanket around my lap, his hands careful and steady. The warmth of his touch had become as familiar as the ache in my legs, a bittersweet reminder of what I'd lost and what I still had. "Comfortable?" he asked, kneeling beside my wheelchair and looking up at me with those steady hazel eyes. "Perfect," I replied, my voice stronger now, though I could still hear the faint slur in some words. He grinned, as though every improvement was his personal victory, and I couldn't help but smile back. It hadn't been easy. 3 weeks ago, my body betrayed me, leaving me trapped in silence and immobility. My husband had taken one look at the woman I'd become, fragile, dependent, and decided he wasn't staying. He packed his things and walked out, leaving Alex to pick up the shattered pieces. I thought I'd lost everything that day. But Alex had stayed. He hadn't just stayed. He had become my everything. Now, as I sat wrapped in blankets while he crouched beside me, adjusting my scarf against the cold, I realized how much he'd done for me in such a short time. My voice, once broken and weak, was almost entirely back, thanks to his relentless patience. He'd sat with me for hours, guiding me through the simplest words, cheering every small victory. And when frustration got the better of me, when tears slipped down my cheeks in silent resignation, he never wavered. "You've been through worse," he'd say, his voice always steady, his hand warm against mine. "And you'll get through this too. I'll make sure of it." And he had. "Mom," he said now, breaking through my thoughts. His teasing tone was unmistakable. "Are you daydreaming about me again? Should I be worried?" I laughed, the sound light and unexpected. "Hardly. I was thinking about your dad and how lucky he was to avoid all this nagging." He gasped in mock offense, pressing a hand to his chest. Nagging. Mom, I am a saint for putting up with you. You. A saint. I raised an eyebrow. You're insufferable, Alex. If I could still dance, I'd be twirling circles around you just to shut you up. His expression softened, though his teasing never quite faded. Well, you will soon. You said so yourself. Remember, we've got a deal. I'm your partner at the first party we go to after you're walking again. I'll even wear that ridiculous tie you like. The memory brought a lump to my throat. It was true. Alex had made me promise to dance with him, to believe in a future where I wasn't confined to this chair. And because of him I did believe. You'll regret it, I warned him, though my voice trembled with emotion. Not a chance. He leaned closer, brushing a stray strand of hair from my forehead. The way his fingers lingered, gentle and deliberate, sent a warmth through me that had nothing to do with the blankets or the sunlight. The line between us had blurred. I wasn't blind to it. How could I be? Alex had stepped into a role I never expected him to take, not just as my son but as my caretaker, my companion, my constant source of strength. And somewhere along the way, that closeness had begun to shift into something deeper, something unspoken but undeniable. He joked more often now, teasing me in ways that made my cheeks flush. Compliments, once casual, now carried a weight that left me breathless. And in his eyes I sometimes caught a look that made my heart race, a look I'd thought I'd never see again. Do you ever think about the future? He asked suddenly, his voice softer, serious. I glanced at him, startled. Course. Every day. Why? Just wondering, he said, his gaze dropping to the snow-covered ground. Sometimes it feels like everything changed so fast and I don't want you to think I'd ever regret any of it. Regret what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Staying, he said simply. Taking care of you. Being here with you like this. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, and I reached out to take his hand. You've given me everything, Alex. You've saved me. His hand tightened around mine, and for a moment we simply sat there in the fading light, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. You saved me first, he murmured. When I was a kid, when Dad wasn't around. You were always there for me, Mom. Always. I'm just trying to pay you back. I smiled through my tears. You don't owe me anything. But I'll take the dancing lessons when I'm ready. His grin returned, bright and warm. Just don't blame me when you can't keep up. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the garden in hues of gold and crimson, I realized that whatever the future held, whether it was walking, dancing, or something entirely new, I wasn't facing it alone. Alex would be there, his hand steady in mine, guiding me forward with a love that knew no boundaries. As the snow deepened outside, Alex pushed me through the front door and into the warm embrace of home. The scent of pine and cinnamon lingered faintly, remnants of the candles he'd lit earlier. He wheeled me toward the living room, his energy light and teasing. Now, Mom, he said, his grin playful, if I were to ask what you wanted for dinner, would it be something sensible, or am I about to spend hours making your famous lasagna? I laughed, his humor infectious. Alex, you can't tease me about lasagna when you know it's exactly what I want. His eyes sparkled with mock resignation, but I could see the joy in his expression. Lasagna it is. Your wish is my command. He disappeared into the kitchen, leaving me in the warmth of the firelight. The sounds of chopping, sizzling, and occasional humming drifted into the living room, making the space feel alive in a way I hadn't realized I missed. You're humming, I called out, teasing him as he returned with a mischievous smirk. Maybe I'm just happy, he replied. He set a plate in front of me, the lasagna steaming and perfectly golden. As I took my first bite, the flavors of melted cheese and tangy tomato sauce danced on my tongue. This is perfect, I said, and the way his face lit up made me wonder if he lived for these moments, seeing me smile, seeing me alive. After dinner, Alex scooped me up in his arms. Though I protested at first, it didn't take long to surrender to the feeling of his strength around me, the security of being cared for. Don't tell me you're getting shy now, he teased, his breath warm against my temple as he carried me upstairs. I've been doing this for weeks. He gently placed me on the bed and pulled the covers up to my chin. Before stepping back, he leaned down and pressed a kiss to my cheek, a gesture so tender it brought a lump to my throat. "Good night, Mom," he murmured, his voice soft. "Good night, Alex." The next morning, I awoke to the faint clatter of movement from downstairs. It was a rhythm I'd grown used to, the comforting sound of Alex starting the day. Still, curiosity had me straining to listen. About 10 minutes later, he appeared in the doorway, his grin bright and eager. "Come on, sleepyhead," he said, crossing the room to wheel my chair closer. "Your new dance partner is waiting downstairs." "Dance partner?" I asked, my brow furrowing as he lifted me into his arms. "You'll see," he replied, his tone full of playful mystery. When we reached the living room, my breath caught. There it was, a sleek, polished rehabilitation track, gleaming in the morning light. My heart swelled with gratitude, and tears pricked the corners of my eyes. "You did this," I whispered, my voice trembling. Alex set me down carefully and crouched beside me, his eyes warm and steady. "You've always been the best dancer I know," he said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "I figured it's about time you had the chance to remind the world." The tears spilled over, and I didn't even bother to wipe them away. "Alex, this is..." Words failed me. "Don't cry," he said with a soft chuckle, squeezing my hand. "You haven't even tried it out yet. Let's have breakfast first, and then we'll see if you're ready to take your first steps back to the dance floor." After breakfast, Alex brought me to the track, his every movement patient and deliberate. He adjusted the harness and positioned himself behind me, his hands firm on my waist. "Ready?" he asked, his voice low and encouraging. I nodded, though my nerves made my stomach churn. "One step at a time," he reminded me, his arms steadying me as I tried to lift my leg. It was harder than I imagined. My body felt foreign, clumsy, but Alex's presence grounded me. Each step was a struggle, but his quiet words of encouragement and the strength of his arms gave me courage. "That's it," he said as I managed another step. "You're doing amazing. Just a little more." His smile, full of pride and warmth, made the effort feel worthwhile. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of the old me, the woman who loved to dance, to move, to feel free. "You're incredible," he said when we finally paused. I looked up at him, breathless but smiling. "I wouldn't be here without you." His hands lingered at my waist, his gaze steady and unwavering. "You're here because you're strong, Mom. I'm just lucky to have a front row seat to your comeback." The words warmed me, but it was the way he looked at me that made my heart skip a beat. It was a gaze full of admiration, devotion, and something else I wasn't ready to name. "You'll be dancing again in no time," he said, breaking the moment with his usual teasing tone. I laughed, resting my head briefly against his chest. "Only if you're my partner." "Always," he whispered, his voice carrying the weight of a promise. After training, my body felt worn, but my spirit was alight with something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. Each step I'd managed on the rehabilitation track was a triumph, and Alex made sure to celebrate every single one. As he helped me out of the harness, his arms encircled me in a tight embrace. "You didn't fall," he said, his voice a mixture of pride and awe. "No," I replied, my own voice trembling with a mix of exhaustion and joy. "But I would have if it weren't for you." He held me for a moment longer, his strong arms steadying me as though to remind me that he'd always be there to catch me. Pressed against him, I felt small, almost childlike, but not in a way that diminished me. Instead, it reminded me of how safe I felt in his presence. "Little girls don't conquer their fears the way you just did," he whispered, his breath warm against my hair. I pulled back just enough to look up at him, and the tenderness in his eyes was almost too much to bear. Later that evening, Alex wheeled me into the living room and made a show of dramatically scrolling through our movie options. "Something light. Something funny," he mused, feigning deep concentration. I laughed softly at his theatrics. You're terrible at pretending to be indecisive. Just pick something before I fall asleep. With a mock gasp, he pointed to the screen. This one, he declared, hitting play before I could protest. As the opening credits rolled, I realized it was a romance, a film about forbidden love and impossible choices. My heart fluttered as I glanced at Alex, wondering if the choice had been intentional. He sat beside me on the couch, close enough that our shoulders brushed. The warmth of him seeped into me, but it was his gaze that caught my attention. When I looked over, I found his eyes fixed on me, not the screen, with an intensity that made my breath hitch. Alex, I murmured, unsure of what to say. His voice was quiet but firm. You know how amazing you are, don't you? The way he said it left no room for doubt. He wasn't talking about my progress or my resilience. He was talking about me. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding as he shifted closer, his knee brushing against mine. You've always been the most beautiful woman I've ever known, he said softly, his voice almost reverent. And I love you, not just as a son loves his mother. I love you in every way that matters. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The words hung in the air, charged and undeniable. My mind raced, but my heart had already leapt ahead, crashing through every barrier I'd tried to maintain. My voice faltered, but the look in his eyes gave me strength. I love you too, Alex. I don't know when it happened, but I've never felt this way before. Not even when your father and I were happy. The confession tumbled out, unfiltered and raw, and for a moment we simply stared at each other. Then, with deliberate tenderness, Alex reached out and took my hand in his. You don't have to explain, he said, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. I just needed you to know. I've needed to tell you for so long. Come on, he said after a moment, standing and holding out his hand. What? I asked, blinking up at him. Let's dance. Alex, I can't. You don't have to, he interrupted, his grin soft and teasing. I've got you. Before I could protest, he bent down and scooped me into his arms. I let out a small gasp, my arms instinctively wrapping around his neck. Alex, what are you doing? Dancing, he said simply, spinning us in a slow circle. The movie played on in the background, its romantic score rising as Alex held me close. The world outside the room seemed to fade away, leaving only the soft glow of the firelight and the steady rhythm of his breathing. He twirled us gently, his movements careful but confident. For the first time in years I felt weightless, free. And as I looked into his eyes, I saw a future I hadn't dared to imagine, one filled with love, laughter, and the strength to face whatever came next. You make me feel alive again, I whispered, resting my head against his shoulder. You've always been alive, he replied, his voice low and steady. I'm just lucky to see it. And as we danced in the quiet glow of our little sanctuary, I knew that whatever paths lay ahead, we would face them together, one step at a time.